Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Now, close to 400,000 people have been killed in the civil war in South Sudan, half through violence, making the conflict among the worst the world has seen in recent years. That's according to a new analysis by researchers at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Now, the researchers hope the new analysis, which far surpasses earlier death toll estimates, will reveal the terrible human cost of the war and give a renewed impetus to peace talks and humanitarian funding. Henry Ridgewell reports.
The South Sudan civil war erupted in 2013 as rebels took up arms against the government. A peace agreement signed 2 years later broke down and the conflict spread. Fighting has continued despite another ceasefire deal signed last month. It has taken a devastating human toll. Researchers say the war has led to nearly 400,000 deaths, with around half of those attributable directly to violence, mostly adult males.
We were surprised at the extent of violence, so at the proportion of deaths that were actually due to people getting killed. I think this places South Sudan more broadly on par with the likes of Syria and Iraq, as opposed to other sub-Saharan African conflicts that we've seen in the past.
The analysis, led by Professor Keki, was funded by the United States Institute of Peace. Researchers used census projections to estimate population figures alongside mortality data from household surveys. They also captured data on various predictors of mortality, such as conflict intensity, displacement, and food security. A statistical model was then used to estimate the death toll attributable to the war, covering not only violent deaths, but also those caused by a lack of healthcare, food shortages, or disease, the indirect consequences of the conflict.
They have actually been shown in many different armed conflicts to be sometimes the majority of deaths attributable to the crisis.
The researchers say their findings underscore the urgency of resolving the conflict. They also hope the analysis can inform the humanitarian response in South Sudan, one of the largest worldwide. Its total funding requirement in 2018 is $1.7 billion, still only half funded, according to the United Nations.
I'm hoping that by putting fairly concrete, objective, hopefully scientifically credible numbers around some crude metric of the level of suffering and impact that these crises have on people, we're actually going to be able to influence that broad global commitment to humanitarian financing.
Keki now hopes to apply the statistical technique to other African conflicts, starting with Nigeria and the war against Boko Haram Islamist militants. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
The federal government is training teachers in Adamawa State, northeast Nigeria, on how to help students who may be traumatized by terrifying experiences during the Boko Haram insurgency. At a 5-day program organized by the Presidential Committee on Northeast Initiative, the need to properly address the psychological impact of the insurgency and strengthening education in the state were discussed.
Like many other aspects of society, education was hard hit by the activities of Boko Haram insurgents in Nigeria's northeast, not only in terms of infrastructure, but also the psychological well-being of students and teachers. Many students dropped out of school, while those still in school are at risk of post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of the violence they were exposed to. Intervention is coming from the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, PCNI, through this 5-day training program. It is in collaboration with Modibo Adamawa University of Technology, Yola, to equip primary school teachers with skills to help affected school pupils. The Vice-Chancellor of the institution, who is represented by the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Administration, explains how the insurgency had far-reaching effects.
There is no gainsaying that the insurgency has not affected us. It has affected us in so many ways. Apart from our educational system, our social structure, and our economy has been adversely affected by the insurgency.
The aim of the training is to undo the negative effects of violence on the younger generation and, by extension, on the education sector.
These three issues, poor quality of teachers, trauma counseling, and security of our schools, are what the training is to tackle. They also guided the development of training modules.
But at the end of it all,
for the Adamawa State Deputy Governor, the training is imperative in view of the need to demonstrate a resolve to strengthen the education sector and build resilience against attacks on educational institutions.
How are they able to manage the trauma of children who run in the bush and come back? We need to send our instructional department to go and verify and tell us these are the impact. If there are new areas that need to be addressed, we will be able to interface with both PCNI and the consultancy, the university here, so that we can incorporate new methods in the other batches that we're going to teach.
This is the second phase of the capacity building workshop, which aims to bridge the gap created in the education sector as a result of the activities of the Boko Haram terrorists in the state.
It's now time for a short break, but first, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and programming around the clock. You can also find us on youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, Exile and Identity, a unique film festival in Kenya highlights stories of refugees. That story after the break.